Welcome to week one of the F100 build. In this first week we're going to be working on the suspension and starting to look at the engine as well. It's been a busy old week and I can't wait to show you what we've been up to. As I mentioned in the intro video, there was a lot of play in the sort of rear suspension. Some of the bushings had gone over here, they were just disintegrated. Things like all the ride height sensors were broken, so I've had to order new ones of those. I'm going to be replacing those all the way around. Yeah, like I say, do the bushings on those. On the air tank, which is over here, there's no pressure sensor. So I need to get hold of one of those so that the system knows when to kick the compressor in and when to stop filling the tank, basically, so we don't overfill it and blow anything up. So that's the rear end. So yeah, new bushings. I am gonna look at adding in some shocks, see if I can find some shocks, but we'll probably get it running and driving first to see how it performs and either go for bump stops or shocks, depending on how well it rides once I've replaced all the bushings and tightened everything back up here a bit. And then yeah, over at the front, I have this airbag had split and I've pulled that out. So again, the ride height sensors need to be replaced there. The new airbag needs to go in and then I'll have to replace the airline because that's been crimped off. And yeah, if I can do all those things, then we should be able to start to raise and lower and see how it all sits and see how it all fits. Then we can make decisions about wheels and things like that. But critically, I want to make sure that it all works well and it all functions properly and it looks great going up and down. So that's what I'm going to be cracking on with in this video. So as I say, the rear differential rear axle IRS is from a sort of 90s Thunderbird or Mercury Cougar, something like that. And it took me ages to find that out, but you can see here the bushings are just completely shot here. There's so much play in them, and you could just see it when we were airing it up and down. There was a lot of play there, and likewise on the hub, or knuckle as they call it in the States, that's not meant to be like that. So I'm going to have to pull this all apart, press some new ones in, so I've got some of those on the way. And yeah, I think actually it should be a really good setup when that's done. So looking forward to getting those replaced, and we'll fit that all back together and just make it that nice bit tighter so it rides a lot better. All right, so one of the first jobs I've got with the suspension, as I say, is to put some new bushings in the control arm so that it's a lot tighter. As you can see, the bushing itself had given up so much that it just literally fell out, which shows how bad it was. So what we're going to do is use the hydraulic press to push out this metal sort of surround, I suppose, really ready to put the new press in. If you've never done this before, what you want to do is have something underneath it which fits around the actual bushing that you're going to press out. My friend Danny gave me a tip of keeping old wheel bearings and bits that you've got lying around that you can press into, which I will drop underneath, and then on top of it what I've got is a socket that is the same diameter as the bushing I'm pushing out. So I've got this one to start it, and I've got a slightly narrower one if I need it. And what you want to do is basically line everything up on the press, and the key thing here is to make sure that everything is absolutely square. You're dealing with 6 tons of pressure with this press, so anything that's slightly off center, there's a good chance that it could pop out, and then you're going to get 6 tons of metal hitting you in the face, which wouldn't feel good. So get it as absolutely square as you can, and then yeah, start the press. Let's see if we can get it moving. So it is moving now a little bit, that's good. What we don't want to do is squash the control arm. So let's see if that's started it moving. We need to change it to the slightly smaller socket once it's gone within the rim there, and that's stuck in the bearing, so I'll have to change that out as well. God blimey. go. So yeah, as you see, we've started it moving, which is great. So I'll switch to this, which is a little bit bigger, and it should be able to slide into that, and then move on to the slightly smaller socket, which I think will fit with it as it goes through. So let's give that another go. Make sure the jack is up nice and tight. And then here we go. Wish me luck. Down. And that's how you press out a bushing. So I can now just give that a good clean, ready for the new one to go in. So I'm going to press the new bushing in on the control arm now. I ordered them from Rock Auto and they came in like 3 days, which is just amazing really. There is an alignment to this, so that notch has to go sort of at the top, and this offset shaft has to go aligned to sort of where that part of the control arm is. Reverse process of the other one, I'm going to use this cup to go over there that will just sit on there, and we're only pushing in a small way, but I've sort of used emery paper around the inside of the control arm to make sure it's all clean. And again, just put a tiny little bit of copper slip. We're not trying to grease it, but we just want to give it a little helping hand to be pressed in. Oh, sorry, I need to put a bit of wood in there. This is not going to be long enough. Ugh. I'm just going to throw that on there. Sorry, under there. Let's get that again nice and square. Let's give it a shove. Right, nearly there. I'm just going to give that another blast and that'll be in. Okay, so I'm now going to press out this bushing on the top of the wheel hub. I'm not going to do this on the press for a couple of reasons. One, because I don't have a hub nut big enough to get this off, well, not big enough, the right size. So I have ordered one because I think, if I can't do something, I always think if I can try it, spend the £8 to get the correct tool for next time. And what you tend to find is that, especially with these American cars, they share a lot of parts. So if I need one for this, then I'll probably need it for another car we're going to work on in the future. So it's worth me just investing that £8 now and then knowing I'll have it for next time. And the other reason is when you've got the wheel hub off, it's very difficult to position it under the press. It's quite an awkward shape. So I'm going to use this kind of almost like G-clamp press to do the job instead. So the way this works is very, very similar. This cup fits around the diameter of the bushing that you're pushing out. I've put a socket in here that's a diameter that can slip through where this one goes through, so that will be able to push it out into this part. It then has a big clamp and then a socket on the end that I can put my impact driver on and push the whole thing out. And yeah, hopefully we'll be able to have that out in a jiffy. There we go, she's out. So I'm just going to give it a clean around here, put a bit of brake cleaner on it and just wipe it down. Make sure it's all nice and smooth and there's no imperfections on the surface. You can see there's a little bit of corrosion here. Get all that off. Sorry, here. Get all that off. And then I'm just going to put the tiniest amount of copper slip. So you're not trying to lubricate the thing, but or not significantly, but you just want to put the tiniest imperceptible amount just to help things when you basically reverse the process and drive the new bushing back in. So yeah, I'll crack on with that.
Soon, one morning, death come creeping in the room. Ooh, ooh, death come creeping in the room. And I know that my time ain't long. Oh death,
There we have nice new shiny bushing in. Happy days. Right, so now we've replaced the bushings on both sides of the control arm. We can now put everything back together again, which is awesome. There. I'm all fingers and thumbs today. It's so cold, so I've got my gloves on. Okay, it's through. Just going to pop that on finger tight at the moment and do sort of connect both ends before tightening everything up, just to make sure everything lines up properly. So this will go a long way, I think, to improving the ride of the vehicle before we do more suspension work. Like I say, doing these kind of sort of routine maintenance bits, I suppose, is really important when you, well, it's important anyway. You would be doing that even if it's static, but certainly when you're talking about air ride, the amount of movement and play, you want these things to be nice and snug. So yeah, God, that looks good. So much better. There was so much movement prior to doing this, so it'd be nice to get this all one end. Slightly bigger bolts on the other side, so a bit of a rejig. Here's a chunky boy. There we go. Get rid of you. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so we've got some good news. Airbags have arrived, new airbags. So this is the one that was on the front side that was split. You can see there's a hole there. So we're going to make sure, we're going to find the culprit of that and make sure that there's all clearance for it. This is a Firestone airbag, and they are quite hard to get in this country, but I was luckily able to find one that is a direct replacement. So it's literally says same part number. This is a direct replacement for not too much money. I think I was able to get a pair for about 100 quid or something like that. So I need to now take this bracket off the old broken one and switch it on to the nice shiny new one. And that's putting us one step closer to a functioning air ride system. Especially now we've done the, I need my gloves. Might need to grip this in a vise if I can't get enough torque on it by holding onto it. But yeah, now we've done those rear bushes as well, you know, we're making some real progress, aren't we? Which is great. There we go. Ugh. So just 2 bolts holding the bag onto the bracket. Whip them off and hopefully they'll fit on the threads on the new one as well, so I don't even have to go into my supply of random bolts I've gathered over the years. There we go. Right. Washes there as well. There we go. Brilliant. So this is a Ride Tech bracket and I think that is quite a good make. This has got a push air fitting on here as well, so I'm going to take that off and pop that in the new bag too, to make sure we can just, you know, it's just a straight swap. So let me try and whip that off there. What size are we talking about here? I'll have to put some sort of PTFE sort of tape on it. How's that going to go? Yeah. There we go. Oh. Gosh, I'll tell you what. They do talk them up well. Oh, there we go. There's the nice happy valve. So let's look at shifting them over. I'm just going to check that the thread is the same before I go and get some tape. Yep, that is. So I'm going to go and get some PTFE tape that will create an airtight seal basically. So it turns out you can't use PTFE. I'm glad I googled that. You can't use PTFE on air ride systems. You need to use some liquid sealant, so which I don't have. So I'm going to do some googling now, see if there's anywhere locally that I can get some from, and if not, I'm sure my friend Jeff Bezos will get some to me quick as a flash. So I will do something else instead. But we'll come back to this. We'll get that airbag fitted up, and yeah, hopefully that means the system is going to be close to being back up and running. Okay, so I got some liquid PTFE, which has meant that I've been able to fit the bag back together with the bracket. I've sealed up the straight in line push connector, so that's ready to connect back to the system. I've also installed the pressure sensor to the tank. So I found this in the glove box, funnily enough, because I was looking at getting one and they're really expensive. I am a bit concerned that given that it was in the glove box, it is faulty. But I guess I can test it. We can see if it works. If it doesn't work, then I'll just have to order another one. But I believe that is correct, that it goes in the tank. I have run a fresh airline from the controller, which is under here, to the front there where that broken bag was, because the previous one had been crimped off with a pair of more grips. So I got some free more grips out of this, which is pretty cool. So I've run a nice fresh one here, ready now for the bag to be reinstalled, reconnected, and yeah, then we're all pretty much back together and sealed up, and that's, yeah, the sort of air ride stuff starting to come together, pending testing and all that kind of stuff. So I got down underneath the truck and reinstalled the new airbag. It took no time to get out. It took a little bit longer to get back in, jiggery pokery and fitting it in and around there. But happy to say that it fitted nicely, and the new airline fitted nicely into the air socket that we reinstalled. Okay, so that's the airbag back in. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any clearance issues. I think it must have been when it was completely aired out. Like I say, when it completely lost pressure, I think it was so pushed up, there was actually contacting, I'm not sure if you can see it, let's see if I can get my light in there, but on this ball joint here, because there's no clearance issues anywhere else. So hopefully that it should be fine. And yeah, all bolted up nicely. You can see here again where a ride height sensor has broken. So yeah, I'll be replacing those before we can finally, I guess, sign off on the air ride being back together. But yeah, another job well done. Happy days. All right, so I've put some power, put the battery on, and found there was just a missing connection of this relay here and there. Connected that, and I've earthed the pump to just on a jump pack to the chassis there, and it did kick into life. So it's now filling up the tank. What I'm curious about is whether it will shut off when the pressure sensor kicks in. So I don't know, and I don't really know how to. No, really, I should probably have put a pressure gauge on it. So this is either going to blow up or stop itself at some point. So I will check back and see what it does. Well, I'm happy to say it stopped, which hopefully means that the air pressure sensor is working, and that means that we have a functioning air ride system. You can see on the controller here, there's a red light on this rear right-hand side, and I think that's the height sensor on that one was completely mullered. The other ones are still in situ, just the arms are broken, whereas that one is now removed because it was so smashed. But what I can do is check if the front airbag that I installed is taking any air. So if I put some air to it, we can see if it leaks, basically. No leaky. That's good news. Although I can see why potentially the bag was breaking. Let's have a quick look underneath. Because when that's moved, let's put my light on. Yeah, you can see there. That's probably where the contact is. Okay, oh, I guess it's at its lowest extent. I think I need to do a bit more investigation to that, because at the moment that looks like it is going to put a hole in it. Very interesting. So having made a good fist of the suspension, attention now turned over to the engine, and my good friend Dan Bennett came over. Dan works for ProDrive in Milton Keynes, and he's an avid hot rodder. His dad races drag races, so he's got a lot of experience with this stuff, and it was great to have his help, experience and support to see if we can get the engine making a noise. Right, engine. We've taken the bonnet off so we can see, and we're just going to start digging into it now. So we're going to see if there's any oil up in the top end. Just check the oil, and it smells quite fuely, but that carb, if this is a 350, is far too big. So it might have just been over fueling, unburnt fuel getting into the oil, etc. What we'll do is, we'll have a quick look at the top end there. Then we will make sure it rotates fully. Check a couple of plugs and see how they look. And then, we might be able to, if that all looks good, then we might be able to throw some power on it and just see if it turns over. But no fuel system connected up at the moment, so we'll try and just spin it over without fueling because we don't know what's in that fuel tank. We don't want to push any rubbish into it.
Pretty dry.
Well, we've got it off. Shall I try and turn it round and we'll see if everything's moving?
Yeah.
It's not compressing.
Them valves, the springs and that look pretty fresh, and the push rods.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's probably a fault.
Yeah, you've gone there, you're on 7 now. Yeah, that looks, they look pretty clean. So do the springs. Let's cut.
Not new, but it looks fine.
No, it ain't got the grease in
Yeah.
it. So there's been some attention given to it.
Yeah, it's fine. I think this is all looking right.
I think so far so good.
Cool, so we've checked the condition of the engine. As you've seen, it all looks really good. It looks like it's been freshly built. And we got to the point where we decided to try and start it, turn the key, voltage dropped, but no noise in the starter. So I went under to hit it with a hammer. No starter motor. Who knew? Check if there is a starter motor. So, very luckily, we've managed to get hold of a starter an hour later from John Wolfwason. We got the bolts from US Automotive. Again, the benefits of being in Bedford. So we got those back now. We're going to bolt them up and see if we can make it make a noise. All right, so starter motor is now in and sort of crudely wired because I think this might not be working very well. So we're just going to kind of jump it. Basically, we want to see if it's got spark. So let's try that. Do you want to hold that? Yeah, hold that. Do you think that'll be oh, my, that should be all right.
I'll run it off the head.
No spark. Bad times. So should we try and see if we get spark now?
Yeah. Yeah, we're good.
Spark.
Okay.
Well done, man.
Thanks.
Well done, that man. I reckon we charge the battery a little while,
Yeah.
rig up the fuel supply,
Fill the bulbs up.
fill the bulbs up and see if it'll fire. How's that sound?
I'm down with that.
So we found, well, Dan very cleverly spotted that the distributor was wired up wrong to the starter relay. We think the starter relay isn't working because it just isn't sending 12 volts out this side. So I've found one on my shelf. That's the one off the shelf, and we've switched it over. So hopefully that will work. We're just rigging up a fuel supply. We now know it's got spark. We're just going to rig up a temporary fuel supply and throw some fuel at it. Who knows? We might get it running. First attempt at starting.
Just needs a bit more fuel.
So we spent some time tinkering with the carburetor, playing with the fuel supply, trying to get a tune out of it, but what became very clear was that not only was the carb not right for this engine, it's also not right, it's done, needs a rebuild, and I think we need to put a different one on. Well, while I was under the bonnet, I thought I ought to check the brakes, and popped off the top of the master cylinder, and you can see it's got a dual master cylinder, so you have a circuit for the rear and a circuit for the front brakes, and the one in the front has fluid in it, although it looks grotty, so I'm probably going to drain it all out and put new fluid all the way through the system. But the back is empty, which would suggest to me it's got a leak somewhere in the system. So I thought it would be timely to pull the hub, as I've got the wheel off this side anyway, and inspect the brakes. Now, it doesn't seem to be anything wrong here, unless it's completely bone dry. But I think what I'm going to have to do is put some brake fluid in and pump the pedal a few times and see if it's got a leak anywhere, and see what's going on. I also think this stud looks a bit cocked. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a bit bent, so I think I might need to pull this hub off, press that out and put a new stud in as well, just so, again, it's all about making it safe and roadworthy. So yeah, I think that'll be worth doing. All right, so I've drained out all the brake fluid, and look at all that crap in there. It occurred to me I was being a silly goose, because actually the fronts serve the rear and the rear serves the fronts, if that makes sense. Now, I think what's happened is the fronts had a disc brake conversion. I think they've done that as part of this build and never refilled the system. So that's sort of drained down during that process and probably just been left empty. Condensation's got in there and rusted up the brake master cylinder. So I've ordered another one from Rock Auto. It was like 65 quid delivered, which will be here early next week. So I will then be able to replace that and fully re-sort the system. I'm going to flush all of the brake fluid out of the rears as well, because it looked pretty filthy in there, and make sure that it's all good. And we've got a brand new brake master cylinder on there. Whilst I'm under here, I think I've got a new battery on order, because this one's not right with the front mounted terminal. So that's coming today or early next week. I can tidy up the wiring, but it's not too bad here. The alternator is here, and I'd really like to test to see if that works, because I noticed that it's wired to an external voltage regulator here, which the wiring does not look too happy. So I think I'm going to pull that apart, make sure it's all wired in properly, and then when I can put the new carburetor on, I'll then be able to test if it's charging, because that's just another potential component to change. You know, with these things, the money doesn't half start racking up, but it'll be really good to be able to say to the new owner, you know, new brake master cylinder, make sure the alternator's working. If not, we'll replace that. Things like the water pump I'll have to check, and the whole cooling system to make sure that's doing its job correctly. Currently has no fan on it, so I will potentially reinstate that, but what I'm actually thinking of doing is putting on an electric fan to give it that bit of better cooling, which I'll then attach a thermostat into the coolant hose so it kicks in automatically. But yeah, just good to tick off all these things. Again, we want to make sure we go through everything and that this thing runs great. I think that's really important when you're doing, in my mind, when you're doing like a ratty build, you should not compromise mechanically. I think the best ratty builds are ones that have great mechanics and have, you know, completely solid underneath and really clean underneath. The interior looks good, and then it's just the bodywork that looks ratty. That to me is what a rat should be about. So yeah, that's what I'm gunning for with this. And yeah, I think we're ticking things off quite successfully in this first week. Okay, so yeah, the engine, like we say, looks pretty healthy, which is great news. But I also had some good news this week in that the Falcon has sold, which is a real relief. And like I say, doing this as a job, you really only know if it's successful at the point that something sells. So that's great news, and it means I've also been able to be a little bit more relaxed financially, I suppose, really, because as I say, the expenditure on this project is starting to rack up a bit, which is fine because I want it to be, absolutely perfect. But yeah, having that money from the Falcon, knowing that's coming in, is a great relief. But what it has meant is that I've been able to treat us to some little treats for the vehicle. So this, I've got a 600 CFM Edelbrock Performer carburetor. I've never ever been able to buy a new carburetor. Not for a V8, American V8. I have done on old VWs in the past. So I'm really excited about fitting this up and knowing it's exactly the right carburetor for the application. And I'm really confident that once this is fitted up and once we've got fuel going to it, that we're going to have a runner. So yeah, really excited to get cracking with this. So first job is to remove the old carburetor, which I'm going to do now. I've already kind of sprayed it all up with penetrating oil on all the bolts to make it a bit easier. So I ordered the carburetor on Tuesday. It's now Friday afternoon. It's just arrived, so I'm just going to see how far I get this afternoon with fitting it up. It might be that we don't get it fully ready to fire up before the weekend, but then it's something to look forward to when we come back in on Monday. So let's have a look at this. So just 4 bolts in each corner. And obviously I've got to disconnect the throttle linkage, and the fuel line's already disconnected, so that bit's done. Vacuum hose from the distributor, and then we can pull it off, so relatively easy. Just going to keep hold of all these bolts. I have got some new studs with the kit just in case we needed them. I'm not sure if we will, but again, something good to have in the stockpile, because invariably I'm going to need them at some point. I think what I might do as well is, once I've got the carburetor off, just get a vacuum and clean the top of the manifold. Make sure no crap is falling into the engine, because that would not be good. Remove the vacuum, and then the throttle linkage here. So yes, 13 probably. Yeah. So this carburetor, like I say, is a 700 CFM Demon carb, which I think is, a pretty serious carburetor. If it's of interest to anyone, DM me with an offer if you've got a big block that it'll be good for. If not, it'll just go on my parts shelf in case I need it in the future, or I'll probably take it along to a swap meet and see if I can make a little bit of money back, which is always helpful. Put a bit more money in the pot. Okay, I think that's everything disconnected. So let's I'm going to stick my gloves on. Probably going to be fuel coming out of the fuel line, so I'll get my pot ready. The bowls are full still from when we were trying to run it the other day. I'll just try and empty that. So what have we got? All looks pretty good under here. Oh, except for that. It looks like a very broken hose there, going into the manifold. I think that's some kind of vent. Or is it a return? I'll have to do a bit of investigation into that. Okay, so I'm not sure if you've seen that, but basically there was a bit of hose between these ports here that was completely snapped. I've traced that off and it goes down to the transmission. So obviously quite important and a good thing to catch whilst I've got the carburetor out of the way. So I'm just going to throw a bit of hose on there and reinstate that. And, you know, as part of the troubleshooting, that's something that might have caught up with us later on. I know that the transmission linkage isn't connected and perhaps they're having issues with the transmission. So who knows, that might be something that's going to be of benefit a bit later on. So I'll reinstate that, crack on with putting the new carburetor in. But yeah, it all looks pretty good here. This gasket looks good. I'll just give it a little clean because it's got a bit of crap on there, but no need to replace that, even though I know I do have some new ones. It looks like it's in good fettle anyway. So there she is. Like I say, I've never put a new carb on a American car. Of all the times that I've had one and been working on them, first time I've ever bought a new carb, so I'm really chuffed about it and it looks so good. It means the rest of the engine bay is going to have to up its game a little bit, but I think that looks awesome. So next will be just connected up this throttle linkage properly. I'm not convinced that's right, so I need to perhaps look at how I can connect that so it doesn't bind up and returns correctly. I've pulled the choke cable out and that's come off at the end, so I'll have to look at getting a ball joint on there to connect onto the choke linkage there. Obviously the fuel lines, we're still not sure on the fuel situation, what the tank's like, but that will go on here and we'll connect up the vacuum line to the correct vacuum port, block the other ones off, and then we will be ready to fire up. All right, I'm going to call it there. Just leave it on a cliffhanger. Will it run? That's going to be the first thing I'm looking forward to doing next week. So it's been a fantastic first week working on the truck. It's actually been 3 days, so there's a couple of days when I wasn't able to make it in. But now my daughter's back at school and it means I can throw myself into it full time next week. So I'll have a full 5 days working on it. That we've got so far in the first week is really surprising, and what we've found so far, it's all been pretty positive. I'm confident that the engine's really good. Like the transmission looks good, like I checked the oil and that looks good. I think we're in a great place now with the suspension. My concern with the airbag and the clearance, I think actually is just because the swing arm was just hanging. Once it's actually at a ride height, I think that will be okay. So I will double check that and we'll be able to throw some wheels on it and start playing with ride height. Next week I can start, I've already started a little bit wire brushing down the chassis while I was waiting for parts to arrive, and that's something that we can then start to do next week as well. But I set myself a goal of getting this thing done by the beginning of March, and I think we're going to actually, well, I'm confident that we'll get it done before then. He says, barring any disasters, but I haven't found anything bad yet at all. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this first video of first proper video, I suppose, of the F100 project. I've really enjoyed working on it. It's been great to have my friend Dan's help, and your suggestions and comments have been really helpful as well too. So please do continue sending those in. It's great news as well that the Falcon has sold. Again, that's what this is all about really, and that's been a massive relief. And I'll be happy to see that going off to Fife in Scotland next week as well. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, I told myself I wouldn't buy any more projects until I built this and 2 more that I've got to do, but I have seen something. So we'll see. And I think you'll quite like that as well. So again, thank you so much for watching along. Please do subscribe. As I say, I've set myself a goal to get to 1,000 subscribers, and yeah, continue to watch, and I look forward to putting out another video next Sunday at 10 a.m. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you soon.